Hey everybody, it's David Kemp. I'm your host of the Highway to Health podcast series, and I got a big smile on my face, and you'll find out why here in a minute. If you've tuned in the past, you know that, on the Highway to Health podcast, we are focused on unlocking the voices of the experts, the innovators, the disruptors, the early adopters around healthcare that are passionate about improving the experience, improving access, improving outcomes for our patient and provider population. And that's why I'm so excited to have the guest on the show today. His name is Dr. Sigmund. He hosts his own podcast show. I'm going to let him introduce himself because nobody does it better than he does. But he's dedicated his life to this mission. And everybody asks, of our providers, of our professionals, why we got in the healthcare industry. We're going to get into why some of us have stayed in the healthcare industry and other topics. But without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Sigmund. Dr. Sigmund, welcome to Highway to Health.
David, what a pleasure to be here. So you asked me, how should we introduce? I said, dude, let me rock and roll on my own here. I'll give it to the people right now. Dr. Scott Sigmund, the original opioid-sparing orthopedic surgeon, healer of knees and shoulders left and right, #follow the fro, host of the Ortho Show podcast, chief medical officer of Ortho Laser. It's just a pleasure to be here, David. I can't thank you enough for having me.
And now everybody knows why I let you introduce yourself, because it's quite the background. It's quite the resume. And man, I'm honored. I'm honored to have you here. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But I want to start, I've listened to your content for a long time. You do a great job with it. But, everybody asks you why you got into healthcare, and there's always a reason why, right? But healthcare is hard, and there's no shortage of challenges. There's no shortage of obstacles. And so I always like to ask, why'd you stay? What keeps you in it, despite, the things that we deal with and the things that you have to overcome. So maybe we start there. Why have you stayed in healthcare over the period that you have, and what keeps you in it? What keeps you excited?
Yeah, I mean, there's no greater privilege than to be able to heal others, right? And that's what we do. And yeah, do I have to press more buttons these days? Do I spend more time staring at a computer? There's all kinds of things that have happened that have made it more challenging. But at the end of the day, I wake up in the morning, I go to the office, people are coming to see me that need my help and my expertise. And it's just such a privilege to be able to share that with them, be able to help their healing experience, see them improve and get better. It gets me up in the morning every day, and I'm still thrilled to do it.
I had a CEO of Arista MD on the podcast recently, and I asked her, about physician burnout and the challenges physicians and healthcare professionals are experiencing. And even though she's the CEO of a technology company, she said technology is the reason. And so I think it's fitting that you said, I have to push a few more buttons now than I did in the past. And so that seems to be a thing. From a digital health and solution point of view, since we're on that topic, we hear all the buzzwords. You go to these shows, and we were at Academy together out in Vegas. I just got back from Vive in Nashville last week. We hear about all these things, the buzzwords that dominate our industry right now: physician burnout, staffing shortages, solution fatigue. But I want to hear from the healthcare professional's perspective. What are those real challenges that you face every day?
Yeah, great question. And I think what we're seeing, there was a real lull there for about the last decade. There wasn't really much going on. We were asked to do more every day. We're getting ratcheted down on our reimbursement every day. And so there were great challenges, but there wasn't much happening. I'm really excited about the fact that technology is finally making its way into orthopedics, into the medical world, into our operating rooms even. And so we're starting to rally the troops, circle the wagons. There's some cool stuff going on nowadays that have really elevated our game and taken some of that responsibility off of our personal shoulders. So, for example, my private practice group, even though we were, in all measures, a wildly successful orthopedic group just north of Boston with 11 providers and a bunch of extenders, it was still a challenge going to work in this environment where large healthcare systems like the partner system with Mass General and the Brigham pushing around and trying to invade into our territories. So what do? We joined a private equity platform. What has that done for us? We've gone from 12 docs up to now 150 doctors. We're developing, best practices. We're figuring out ways to, reduce overhead, reduce work, and, improve our quality of our professional lives on a daily basis. So that's one factor that's really made a difference. And now, as you brought up, Dave, I'll mention two companies that sort of come to mind in the technology space that are exciting for me. One is Limber, which is using the new remote therapeutic monitoring codes, and Pain Scripts, which is also using those codes as well, more in the pain space. But all of a sudden now there's these new codes, CPT codes. Like, when was the last time there was a new CPT code that came out that can generate additional revenue with technology? They give you the technology. Your patients are having home physical therapy on their smartphone. You're watching them, you're coaching them, they're getting outstanding care in the comfort of their house. We're developing all of the necessary bullets that's required, and then they supply that information, and then I can bill as a doctor and provide better care for my patients. So yes, it's onerous. Yes, it's been difficult, but there are real advances that are happening right now. I'm sure at Vive must have been an outstanding meeting to be able to talk about those things as well.
It really was. And, this feeling that everybody has is we are living in this golden age of innovation. And something you just touched on, which I think is critical, and I bet you would agree here, is, margin is finally meeting mission. You mentioned the CPT codes that are helping with the reimbursement and the cash flow challenges that we've traditionally seen with new solutions. And it's providing a better experience for the provider and for the patient, which then ultimately leads to a better access to that care, a better outcome for our patient population. And, with a lot of this care being done at home and a lot of this, continued care and rehab being done at home, education's played a huge part in this too, where, we're starting to create and deliver the type of education the patients need to manage their own health for a longer term and stay more connected to that care journey that we need them to stay on to improve those outcomes.
People want to keep moving, right? And I'm in the business of helping people with their pain, right? That's what orthopedic surgeons do. Sometimes we operate, but there's a lot of different modalities that are out there. And at the end of the day, if we can keep our population moving and reduce their pain, keep them healthy, then that's what it's all about. And I think that the technology, in a smartphone, right, you can basically control NASA satellites these days. Why shouldn't we be improving the quality of life of our patients using that technology as well? Now, don't get me wrong, technology for technology is no good. I don't need more things to do, but I need value, right? If you're creating value in the care that we're providing to our patients and improving their care with technology, sign me up all day long.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where you see adoption taking hold, both from the healthcare professional side of things and the patient side of things. If the technology has value, if it has purpose, and it's easy to adhere to, that's when you start to see those synergies click. And it's exciting. I agree. That's one of the reasons we're doing this podcast, is because let's get some of this negative perception off of healthcare being 10 years behind every other industry. That's not necessarily the truth anymore. And we've seen some awesome examples of that. Even most recently at AAOS out in Vegas. We're fresh off of that event. I know what my takeaways are, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective. From your perspective, what were some of the big takeaways from Academy out in Vegas?
Yeah, so I mean, I go to the Academy and I look at these multi-million-dollar booths, right? And we talked a little bit about this, Dave, offline. And they spend all this money, and then at the end of 3 days, what happens? The booth gets knocked down, right? And where's your ROI? Hopefully you got some business out of it. Hopefully some people are going to use your product. It's hard to identify. So I sort of describe that as sort of classic analog marketing, right? It's brick and mortar. It's some piece of paper that you're passing out to somebody hoping you're going to get a gig. But at the end of the day, our world's digital, man. That's where it's at, right? So my dear friend Matthew Ray Scott sort of coined a term, the digital opinion leader, which I love, the DOL, which is a pickup on the key opinion leader, right? And the idea, it's great, right? So the idea and the concept is, where are we getting most of our information? I know that this is important for you, staying connected, right? So through the Academy, I walk into that Academy floor and people are tapping me left and right. They're like, hey, Fro, love what you're doing, love the show. And why is that? Because we're so connected on social media with LinkedIn. I walk through the airport, people tap me on the shoulder, love what you're doing, never met them before. It's because we're connected through social media. So what if you take your ideas, whatever they may be, whatever it is that you're trying to sell, and then you identify a key opinion leader that just happens to have maybe 100,000 followers on social media, and you allow them to then amplify your message in a way that never goes away, and you're gaining customers and people listening and watching in ways that you could never before. So I looked at the Academy and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of money being spent here. And the question is it truly delivering a return on investment that these people are looking for? And is there a place for the digital opinion leader to really come on board?
I'm so glad you said it. And it was something that I paid attention to, noticed more this year than in years past. Was it's more mainstream now. Even these sales reps at these large booths, the ones that are doing really well seem to have built trust, built credibility, built relationships by sharing their experience, sharing their knowledge through some sort of digital channel, some sort of media channel. And they're differentiating themselves, but they're also differentiating their organization, their company through those means. This is something that you picked up. And by the way, I was one of those guys that came up and tapped you on the shoulder. You were in a deep conversation, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to say hi and say thank you for what you're doing, because I've been a beneficiary of the content, the education that you're providing on LinkedIn and other social channels. So I appreciate you taking time for that conversation at the show. Tell everybody what the show's meant for you. It's something you started in COVID, right? And tell me how, that has helped you since then and what it's meant for personal branding, corporate performance, everything that it is involved.
Yeah, so you're referring obviously to the Ortho Show, which I started. I did a short segment for them at Kevin Blanchard's OSEC course about 3 years ago. And it was a popular episode. And then they asked me to come on as like sort of a guest host in the middle of COVID. I signed on for a 10-episode gig that turned out to now be 150 episodes and counting at this point, with 150,000 downloads over 125 countries. So, we really have become wildly successful. And it's been a true, sort of badge of honor to be able to share the stories of these unique individuals, that come onto the show. It's been a labor of love to the moment. We actually just went through a sale, so we're going to monetize a little bit and take advantage of the organic growth that we've had. But I learn as much as we give when I do these episodes. It's really enlightening to talk to people from industry or some of the world's greatest orthopedic surgeons, and find out their stories and their passions. What gets them up in the morning, what keeps them excited. And that's what our show's about. It's not boring, right? It's not technical. We always say the same thing, right, Dave? If you're going to be talking, my mother, Judy, has to be able to understand what you're talking about. So I'll stop you cold right there if you go too technical. And so for that reason, one of my favorite stories, if I could tell it. So we're at OSET in September in Boston. You were probably there as well. I don't know, but so an Uber driver, I have this story. Two of my friends call me up the next day and they're like, you're not going to believe this story. I'm like, go for it. Well, we get into the Uber and this Uber driver turns around and says, hey, docs, are you here for this orthopedic conference? And they're like, yeah, that's what we're here for. He's like, do you mind if I play one of my favorite podcasts? It's called the Ortho Show podcast. So they started laughing, and they were like, the two of them had both been guests. They're like, yeah, but you got to play my episode, And so the point I guess I'm trying to make is that, it's more mainstream than we had anticipated, and more people are listening. So I've thoroughly enjoyed. I have no idea how I learned how to do it. It's just been very natural for me, but being able to share those unique stories and be able to, make people smile and be able to want to be a part has really been very special.
In healthcare, I think our unfair advantage is the stories that we have. I mean, there aren't any better stories in any other industry than what we have in healthcare. And so if we're not telling those stories, we're missing out, and we're doing something, that's just not something that we should consider. We should be telling these stories more often and make them available to anybody, anywhere, at any time, because not everybody can go to the academy in Vegas, or they can't go up to Boston. And so we've got to make this education, this engagement, sometimes even inspiration, more available to anybody that's willing to listen.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. I'm hearkening back to our conversation about the academy, and I'm a two badger, right? Meaning like, I have ortho laser there, so I'm an exhibitor. I have a booth there, but yet I'm also an attendee and running around and giving lectures and talks and learning as much as I can. So I get the experience from both sides, of the equation. The expense of having the booth and trying to interact, and yet also experience the new technologies and things that are out there. So I'm always walking the floors and trying to identify the coolest, newest thing at the ortho show. We'll typically do that. We'll identify one company that really looks like it has some awesome new technology, and we'll share that. This year it was Abanza, which is a Spanish medical device company that's got some new soft tissue fixation that we're excited about. So, it's just so much fun. I mean, I came home and I slept for 3 days because my schedule started at 4 a.m. and finished at 10. I went to Vegas, and my wife's very proud of me. I didn't go to a single gambling table while I was there. I didn't have any time nor desire, to be perfectly honest. I was so busy, but really a great event.
Well, that's, an objection that I often hear is I don't have enough time to be doing this. I don't know who I would bring on as a guest to my show. And plus, nobody wants to listen to me. And so, I'd love to hear how you've thought about these things. How do you find time? You don't even have time to visit a gambling table in Vegas. How do you find time to put on this tremendous show, find the guests, and provide that education, inspiration, engagement that we've talked about already?
Yeah, it was hard, and especially when the earliest phases, when it was pretty much me and my producer Heather Hoover. I had two partners in the business as well early on, but they were sort of more in the background. And we did it all. I mean, we had to identify sponsors, we had to identify guests. I do all my own research. I whiteboard it out so that when I'm talking to someone, I'm intimately aware of who they are, and so that we have a great conversation because I've done the homework to provide them stimulating things to talk about. And so what it's become now is like, it's sort of like to be an Ortho Show alumnus is a big deal. People are sort of really excited about it. They want to be a part of it. I mean, we're going to Shoulder 360. Got to send out some love to Joe Aboud and Paul Sethi and Rafi Mirzani, who are running the course down there, which is going to be a phenomenal course because it's fun, it's entertaining. There's a gong and there's music and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It's not your classic didactic course, but we're bringing the Ortho Show down to Shoulder 360 with a full production crew. So we're interviewing 5 of the top shoulder surgeons in the world. Another little thing we're going to do is shoulder surgeons that have had shoulder surgery. It was their idea for the actual course, and we're going to pull out 2 or 3 of them. We're going to say, dude, what was it like having surgery? Who did your surgery? What did you have done? I mean, because now on the other side, it's really cool to see it that way. So it's being imaginative. We just, Chris Mullen's going to come on, NBA, Hall of Famer. We've had Rod Woodson on. So we're expanding outside of the standard guests that you would think of to go more mainstream. But, it's a labor of love and one that I thoroughly enjoy. And then I wear the hat of Ortho Laser as the chief medical officer. And we've got 15 stores open. We've got another 25 ready to go. For me, I make the time for the things that stimulate me and get me excited. Of course, family is so important as well. You might have to maintain, the thread of life of being there for your family and your kids and my 5 boys who are older now. So because they're older, it makes it easier for me to travel and do the things that I want to do. But again, Ortho Laser, we can talk a whole hour on that, but we can sort of talk a little bit more about that as we get going. But that's a passion of mine, democratizing an opioid alternative pain management solution for patients, speaking outside of the box, innovation, medical device design. I mean, I could go on, professional education. These are the things that get me excited, but I still love going to the operating room too, Dave. I love taking care of patients. I love going to the office and seeing patients get better and doing super cool techniques in the operating room. So always a lot going on with the Fro, but it's all great stuff.
There's no doubt that there's always a lot going on with the Fro. And what I love about this is, and you said it, sometimes the busiest people enjoy doing this kind of media or this type of engagement here the most because you have the most to talk about, right? And what happens, what I've noticed, at least with my show, is it happens organically over time where you just meet interesting people and you go, I want to carry on this conversation. So instead of asking you to come on to a Zoom call or meet up for coffee, let's just jump on a podcast and have a conversation that others might benefit. That's what happened with you and me, and it's happened with so many others. It's almost like working out. The more you do it, the easier it becomes, and it's a part of your routine that you don't want to give up. You want to hold on to it because you enjoy it and you're passionate.
Man, you struck a chord. I mean, I really commend you. Like, I get a lot of people that come up to me and just say hi or say nice things. But, the one thing that you can't do is send me a DM and drop some 3-paragraph thing down there without acknowledging, who I am or what I do. Right. So those types of cold calling days are over. So again, my dear friend, Matthew Ray Scott, the beard, and what he talks about is creating videos and interesting and novel approaches to get the interest of your doctors that you're dealing with. And this was a perfect example. You tap me on the shoulder, you say hi to me. You knew you had literally maybe 60 seconds because I was going to some other meeting someplace else. And bam, you struck an arrow in my heart. You said, Doc, I want to hear about you. Love your story. Would you come on my podcast? I'm like, duh, sign me up. Let's go. Right. But that's what it's about. So you're finding an interesting way to draw people into you so that you can share what we're doing. And I think at the end of the day, communication and sharing is what brings us all together.
I agree. And it's the best way to educate too. I mean, gone are the days where, you put together a 1-page marketing slick, or you put together the best, most well-crafted, well thought out email and get the response that you're looking for, right? What people really want to hear are people that are passionate, authentic, and then knowledgeable about the topics that they're discussing. And so I'm excited to unlock the voices of the experts across our industry. You're one of them. And that's why I'm so excited and honored to have you here today. And I think others need to learn from you. And that's kind of where I'd like to go next is, if there was a call to action, for those that aren't building community through education, through the voices of their true experts, what would your suggestion be for those organizations or those individuals?
I think the most important thing that you can do is to stay connected. I'm a big believer that life is all about relationships, and it doesn't matter. My high school friend called me the other day because his nephew, who's a professional basketball player in Japan, needed an ACL surgery. So what do? I pick up the phone, I call my friends and the peeps that I know over in Japan. Bada bing, 48 hours later, we've identified a surgeon for his son. And so you never know when those relationships are going to come around and really be a part of your life. So being a part of a team is hugely important in the endeavors in which you do. For example, at OrthoLaser, our franchise, we put together just this amazing team of experts, right? I'm an orthopedic surgeon, knees and shoulders, left and right, all day long. What do I know about marketing, professional marketing, professional branding, or franchise success, or the numbers for a pitch deck to be able to create an investment portfolio or profile. These are all things that require people working together. So the long answer to your question is maintaining connectivity. I think the LinkedIn platform and ecosystem is just a wonderful place to live. And a lot of people will ask me, David, how do I get started, right? Like, what's the best way to identify people and become a part of the conversation? How do I get a seat at the table with these innovative people that are doing really cool stuff that I want to be a part of? Well, identify the people that you like on LinkedIn. And then what do? I got this from Joe Mullings. Everybody knows Joe Mullings, just a really smart dude, and is involved in so many different aspects of technology and healthcare. And then you comment and you like, and you start following what their posts are. Next thing you know, your name is popping up and they're getting to know you as to who you are. Then you create posts of your own. And next thing you know, you're in the mix and you're hanging out. And the one thing I can assure you, it doesn't matter who they are. You may think they're the most important person on the planet. But if you go up and you recognize something special about them and say hello, they're going to look you in the eye, they're going to shake your hand, and they're going to be so appreciative. And next thing you know, you're going to wind up on their podcast here talking about the stuff that we're talking about today.
Man, I can't thank you enough for for doing what you do and for taking the time today. It's a blast for me. And so in a lot of ways, it's self-indulgence and selfishness, but I'm hoping, I'm hoping that your passion, my passion comes through and it inspires somebody to do something similar. And just stay true to yourself. Stay true to what your passions are, what you truly are convicted about, and build up and stay connected through these other platforms that we've talked about, and start building a community of your own and giving back to that community through the voices of your own, but also the voices of the experts within that community. We've talked about a lot, and we've got a lot coming up. And healthcare, I'm telling you, if everybody listening knows this, healthcare is sitting on the edge of some significant breakthroughs that's going to just blow our minds in the next 5-10 years. And so if we're talking about this open road journey that we're on to improve experience and access and outcomes, we're only at the beginning. So much awesome stuff in the near future. But if you can narrow it down, and there was one thing that our listeners could walk away knowing or better understanding, and what would that one thing be?
Well, that's that technology is coming to healthcare. It is long overdue, and it's going to come in a lot of different ways. It's going to make it easier and better for patients to keep moving and be healthy and to try and stay away from disease in big white buildings with sick people in it, the hospitals. It's going to be great for doctors because we're going to have the technology that's available to help heal our patients and keep them moving. It's ChatGPT is coming to the operating room with a company called Caliber AI, which is an artificial intelligence company that's going to allow us to guide the surgical intervention as we're seeing it and identifying the anatomy and helping us to say, that's where things are going to go. Put that anchor in over in here. So I have been really so impressed by the process of technology finally making its way in. I think your points are so well taken, David, that, as we move forwards in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to look back and we're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to do surgery on a 2-dimensional screen. Here's my virtual reality glasses that I'm training with right now with a company called Precision OS that allows me to do surgical interventions in my basement, practicing to get my reps. This is the stuff that's making its way to us, and it's about time.
It is about time. And all of those negative perceptions, reputations about healthcare, they're unfounded. If they were at one time, they're no longer true because of exactly some of the companies that you mentioned and all the awesome innovation that's happening. It's going to take, and it's got to have this other piece to it, this other element to it, which is the early adopters. Those that are anxious to get their hands on new technology, are willing to learn, about the innovations that have happened since they were in school. And so you are obviously an inspiration in that way because you look at technology as an ally and not an enemy. And I think that attitude needs to be, more widespread in the healthcare community. And you can see it already is becoming that way. So thank you for all you do. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I know our listeners appreciate it, and I know they took something from it. And you're always welcome back on Highway to Health.
David, you are a pro. You're an absolute natural. The best podcasts always have a great host. I hope I was a great guest. It's been a pleasure to be on.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
#FollowTheFro. Peace out, everybody.